The next highly anticipated installment of Denis Villeneuve's planned Dune trilogy is his adaptation of Frank Herbert's sequel novel, Dune Messiah. Many are wondering how he intends to handle certain story elements and characters in the wake of the changes and omissions present in Dune Part 2. Because of the omission of the Spacing Guild, many are wondering how Denis Villeneuve intends to introduce certain elements involving the Spacing Guild in his next planned adaptation of Dune Messiah, where the Spacing Guild goes on to play a major hands-on role in the story. The Spacing Guild is one of the most fascinating elements in Frank Herbert's Dune. They are definitely one of the most crucial organizations that make up the Imperium. One of the defining events in the history of mankind as laid out in Frank Herbert's Dune saga is the Butlerian Jihad, the great revolt that saw the purge of thinking machines and other artificial intelligence and computing technology. And in the wake of that, schools were developed to advance human talents, and one of the principal institutions being the Spacing Guild. The guild became so crucial to civilization that basically all commerce and industry are facilitated by their organization. The Spacing Guild's rise to power and their monopoly of safe interstellar transport was so significant that it marked the beginning of the imperial calendar. Because they hold such great significance in the structure of the Imperium in what's really a three-point civilization between the Landsraad, the Emperor, and the Spacing Guild, they serve as a linchpin for power. Since their monopoly depends on the constant flow of spice found only on Arrakis, they only care that whoever is in power ensures the continued harvesting and production of spice. The spice must flow, and the guild is very jealous of their monopoly. And not only that, because of the addictive properties of spice melange, their navigators and many members of their guild would die without the continued supply. So they have a significant interest in the politics surrounding the harvesting of spice. Towards the climax of the story, Paul Atreides has risen to a position of ultimate power. He has brought all of these institutions to their knees. The Spacing Guild itself played a crucial role in the battle for Arrakis between Paul Atreides and the Harkonnen and Imperial forces. For several years, Paul Atreides, under the guise of Muad'Dib, has been disrupting spice production, and of course this would bring the attention of the Guild. They leveraged their influence in the Imperium by lowering transport fees. This made it possible for everyone, even a minor house, to be able to afford the trip to Arrakis so that they could confront Paul and his Fremen followers in a united effort. In the latter half of the story, the Spacing Guild recognizes Paul's control over the spice. With their prescient vision, they see that his threat to destroy spice production is legitimate. And though Paul intends to make his own rule legitimate in itself by marrying Princess Irulan of House Carino, the Guild is the linchpin in assuring Paul Atreides' rise to Emperor. By Paul's act of controlling the spice, he essentially controls the Spacing Guild as he holds their lives and their livelihood in the palm of his hands. Their capitulation allows Paul to secure his position as Emperor and ascend to ultimate power. Not only does this demonstrate the immense influence of the Spacing Guild itself, it also highlights the fragile nature of the power structure of the Imperium. Considering the Guild plays such an integral role in Paul's ascension to power, their complete omission took many fans by surprise. And personally, I feel this did create some continuity issues between Part 1 and Part 2. While in Dune Part 1, there is some demonstration of how the Spacing Guild works, how spice is necessary for the Navigators for safe interstellar transport to work, and we get somewhat of a glimpse of the Emperor's entourage arriving through the Guild Highliner itself and how expensive it is. And also later in the film, we see a Guild Highliner in space as it transported the Harkonnen and Sardaukar forces. However, in Dune Part 2, where we definitely see the Emperor and the Great Houses in orbit around Arrakis towards the end of the film, we don't see a Guild Highliner in orbit, nor do we hear any mention of them, and they would definitely have a significant vested interest in the outcome of this conflict. Without them being there to throw around their influence, Denis Villeneuve did have to make some adjustments in how Paul Atreides was able to secure his position as emperor. The Great Houses refused to recognize Paul's ascension to the throne, and as a result, that is what triggered Muad'Dib's jihad. However, the Spacing Guild would definitely have assured the Great House's acceptance of Paul. Their utter dependency on spice production forced the Landsraad, the Emperor, into submission under Paul Atreides. They were the very lever that Paul used to bring the Imperium under his control. Because of such a significant omission, many fans are worried and confused as to what the director's approach could be for Dune Messiah, where the Spacing Guild, and one navigator in particular, plays a crucial role in the outworking of the story. Denis Villeneuve did state after Dune Part 2 premiered that his approach for his adaptation of Dune was to focus primarily on the Bene Gesserit. Unfortunately, this also meant that other factions like the Mentats and the Spacing Guild were diminished or, as in the case of Dune Part 2, omitted entirely. But how will this affect Dune Messiah? The Spacing Guild itself plays a major role in the story of Dune Messiah, which is all of these factions coming together to orchestrate the downfall of the Atreides Empire and thus loose his control over them. Along with the Spacing Guild, the co-conspirators involve the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood and the Bene Tleilax. The Navigator Edric is the one who represents the Spacing Guild's interests in this conspiracy, along with the Reverend Mother Gaius Helen Mohiam and Irulan, the Emperor's wife in name only, and Scytale from the Bene Tleilax. Though they each have their own singular agenda representing their own interests, they form a sort of loose alliance to overthrow the Emperor. Edric's involvement is actually crucial in maintaining the secrecy of this conspiracy, as his prescient abilities conceals their intentions from Paul Atreides' prophetic sight. That way, the conspirators can plot against Paul without his knowing. So to say that Edric's involvement is crucial to the story is an understatement, as there would be no hope of secrecy without his involvement. But this does present some challenges for Denis Villeneuve. Considering they took a massive backseat in the events of Dune Part 2, he now has to make up for that loss. But also, if he intends to continue this as a Bene Gesserit-focused adaptation, it does have fans worried that he will again diminish or omit them altogether. While the Bene Gesserit are another fascinating component of Frank Herbert's universe, their power is only really seen when all the other chess pieces in the board are in play. They can't really be seen as manipulators and puppet masters of the universe with no puppets to manipulate. So while I appreciate Denis Villeneuve's approach in making sure that their influence is seen, it really does diminish the story itself if you do not have these other factions involved in the power dynamics of the story. The Guild's actions provide insight into the political maneuvering and alliances in this universe. Having all of these institutions represented in the conspiracy against Paul Atreides does add depth to the narrative and also showcases the chaos of their collaboration, as they all have their own singular self-serving agenda. For me, I can't really see a conspiracy without all of these organizations being represented and it just being the Bene Gesserit. Having the Bene Gesserit the sole focus, or having them be portrayed as the supreme architects of this conspiracy, would definitely water down the narrative and the complex nature of the Imperium and humanity at large. The story of Dune Messiah begs the continued exploration and expansion of the Duneverse, and I'm hopeful that the next installment will address these previous omissions. That way it can add to a more rich and comprehensive adaptation of Dune Messiah. While fans do love the Bene Gesserit Sisterhood and have mostly appreciated Villeneuve's depiction of them in this adaptation, fans are also eager to see the other elements that make up this unique universe on screen as well. They are eager to see the inner workings of the Guild and really dive into what makes them such a powerful and influential organization. The Spacing Guild itself also presents a unique opportunity to explore one of the most strange elements of this universe. There are no aliens in this particular sci-fi story, but there is humanity that has been mutated by the spice itself. The spice being a central part of this story. Seeing their evolution, seeing their dependence on spice reach such a point to where they have basically lost what makes them human, The on-screen depiction of these creatures has always been a point of fascination for fans, and while we have gotten previous depictions in other adaptations such as in David Lynch's version and in the sci-fi miniseries, fans are really eager to see what Villeneuve's interpretation of the Navigators would look like. This could end up being one of the most visually stunning, standout elements of Villeneuve's 3-film adaptation. Denis Villeneuve hasn't demonstrated an aversion to the strange and weird elements of this universe, but he has injected these original elements rather than stick to what Frank Herbert instilled in the story itself. Given Villeneuve's skill as a visual storyteller, I think there is a lot of potential for him to give us a stunning and fascinating portrayal of a guild navigator. I can only hope that he chooses to include this crucial aspect of the story in his upcoming adaptation of Dune Messiah. But I'm curious to know what you think about how the Spacing Guild will be adapted in Denis Villeneuve's Dune Messiah. Do you have any theories as to how the director could incorporate them in light of their omission in Dune Part 2? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe for more Dune and other sci-fi and fantasy news and lore. And if you're looking for other ways to show your appreciation, you can check out my Patreon page, where members get access to exclusive content and perks. Thank you all so much for your support. And as always, have a very nerdy day.